While producing the spoon, any grain such as the maize, millet, and sorghum can be used as a medium. In its traditional meaning, soil is the natural medium for planting crops. Our soil are the basis for agriculture and the medium in which nearly all food-producing plants grow. Healthy soils produce healthy crops that in turn nourish people and animals. But due to the demand of food security and sustainable agriculture, the world has adopted technology. In the case of spoon, the mushroom planting material, sorghum has been identified as a medium for growing the seeds. Use of a specific seed type depends on availability, cost, and preference.
So another way we can add value to mushroom is making the mushroom seed. We call it spoon. And we can use any grain as a media to make the spoon. You can use maize, you can use sorghum, and you can use rice. But in this case, we are using sorghum. So we buy sorghum that has been organically grown without chemicals. So the first stage is taking care of the quality, making sure that the grain is not broken, it's of good quality. It is boiled because this fresh seeds are at 12% moisture. We need to add up to 40% moisture. We do that by boiling it for 1 hour. Boiling, it has to boil because we need to remove the air that is in the grain and to soften it so that you can be able to work around it, because it's difficult to work with the fresh grains. So after drying, we have to lime it. We spread it on this table and add the limestone. So the limestone is for controlling the pH, which is supposed to be neutral, 6.8 to 7.1. The other purpose of the grain of the limestone is to prevent the seeds or the grains from sticking together so that it can flow together. Limestone is 1% of the grain, dry weight of the grain. So when we do that, mix it well, then we add it in. We add the grain now, the lime, into the bottles.
A clear glass bottle is used in developing the seeds, reason being it is possible to monitor the growth process inside the bottle as it is clear and one can see through it.
Now the other reason why we are using bottles, because after this stage we are going to sterilize. And the temperatures that we are using are 121 degrees C at 1.5 bar. These are very high temperatures and high pressures. So it's only glass that can withhold that pressure and temperature. That's the reason why. So this cotton wool is a filter. It will act as a filter during later stages, like we are going to see. We need to protect the cotton wool from getting soaked in steam, because if it becomes wet, it loses its purpose of allowing the air, fresh air, to go through. Then from there, we are going to sterilize the bottles for 1 hour at 121 degrees C at 1.5 bar pressure.
Seeds are sterilized inside those containers by heat and vapor. Optionally, though it may not sufficiently reduce microbes on the seeds, seeds can also be prepared by boiling with a small amount of gypsum added during the boiling process.
The reason why we are sterilizing is because we want to kill all the harmful microorganisms that would be in the sorghum or in that material, the bottle and the media, that's the sorghum, so that it doesn't become a detriment during the culturing or during the spoon preparation when the spoon is growing in the bottle. We have to get rid of all the microorganisms, harmful microorganisms. That's the reason why we are sterilizing at 1 hour, for 1 hour at 121 degrees C at 1.5 bar. When we remove the bottles from here now, the bottles are ready for culturing or inoculation with the culture that has been prepared. Since we have sterilized this media, the sorghum, in the bottle, but then we have not inoculated with the mushroom culture. So we need to introduce the culture, green culture, so that it can grow through the sorghum.
Once the sterilization stage is over, it is now time to inoculate the substrate of the loosened, homogenized seed substrate under aseptic conditions by transferring small cubes of actively growing mother culture. Patrick explains the reason why this is done under aseptic conditions, among them being to avoid any form of contamination, among other reasons.
Baada ya pasteurization, tunataka kufanya inoculation. Inoculation ni kuweka mbegu ile hapa imetengenezwa, inaitwa culture, green culture, tuweke ndani ya hii media ambayo tumepasteurize, na hii tunafanyia kwa green bench ama kwa graph box. This box is called a graph box, where we can be able now to have a clean environment when we are doing this process. So everything inside this graph box should be clean. All the materials that we are using should be clean. You cannot do it outside this box, because outside this box there is a lot of contamination.
Inoculation is strictly done inside the graph box, but for the sake of viewing, Dr. Patrick performed it outside the graph box to help you take a glance of what the process entails.
So the first thing that we do is to sanitize our hands. We sanitize our hands, and we sanitize any material or any tool that is coming in contact with this process. We write our frame, because the importance of the frame is to kill any microorganisms that would be harboring around this area. So this is our culture that we want to multiply into the green bottles. So the first stage is loosening the grains. This one is a fully grown culture. So frame it. We are also framing the other bottom. And then now we introduce the loose grains into the new. And then we frame it again. You have to frame it again a second time, and then you return the cotton wheel or the filter. So after you do that, is the only time you can remove it from the graph box. Obviously, you have to keep the culture closed to avoid any contamination. That's a drop, a few grains, and then after 1 month, to have colonized downwards to the bottom like this one. Now this one is ready for use.
How many seeds are there?
We don't count the amount of seeds, because now what is happening, the spawn is growing vegetatively. It's a mass, a web of the mycelium growing all over.
It takes a duration of 1 month for the culture to colonize the entire material.
This one has grown for about 3 weeks. See, it hasn't reached the bottom. So after 4 weeks, it will have grown to the bottom. And now this one is ready for use. We also indicate the date that it was inoculated. So how do you know that we have good spawn? Good spawn is supposed to be white or gray. With contaminated spawn, we will show spots, black spots, green spots, or yellow spots. So if that one happens when this period is happening, then it is isolated and thrown out because it's contaminated, and it can also be a vector of contaminating the rest of the spawn. So we isolate any spawn that is not growing correctly.
One point to remember is the cool temperatures requirement during incubation. Patrick warns that any temperatures exceeding 23 degrees to 25 degrees could mess up the entire culture.
This is the stage where the mycelium is growing into the grain, and it takes 3 weeks to 1 month or 4 weeks. So we control the temperature 23 degrees to about 25 degrees C during that period of time. The relative humidity should be about 80% to prevent any drying out of the grains. So that now after 1 month it will have grown comfortably, and this one now is enough. So the date, as I have said, this is the time of inoculation. It's important because it shows you whether the spawn is colonizing well or not, because we go by that date.
In every sector, counterfeits cannot be ruled out. Since the majority of the farmers do not have the facilities to make their own spawn, Patrick gives hints on what to look out for as a standard for good spawn.
If one was to give you spawn that is like this one, which is not colonized, then you know that this one is not good spawn, because good spawn, of course, is fully grown and is white and fluffy. So we advise farmers who require spawn to visit institutions like this one, government institutions like this one, the university, because they will be able to get good quality spawn. All the time that you need spawn, come to the institution and you're going to get good spawn. Possibly to avoid headaches when you buy bad spawn from people who do not have the facilities, just come over. We are going to advise you. But the most important thing is we train farmers in our program on how to identify bad spawn and good spawn. So you have to look at the date when it was inoculated, that is not more than 2-3 months, and also if it is contaminated. That one, wherever you are getting spawn from, it could be anywhere, but we train farmers on how to identify good spawn. That is paramount.
The institute also sells the planting material after the farmers have been trained on mushroom farming.
In most cases, it ranges from 2 to 10% of the weight of the material. That is, you can apply your spawn anywhere between 2 and 10% of your weight, the weight that you are using. We give farmers kits, growing kits. When we train them, the kits they go home with, so that they can be able to learn more through them, because they are the same ones that they used during the practicals. So they carry them home. But when they want spawn or fresh spawn, they can always come and buy spawn from this institution.
For those farmers who are interested in getting the training from JKUAT, Patrick advises that a capital of 100,000 Kenyan shillings is a requirement that will enable one to get the training, as well as the starting capital and material required included as well.
We always suggest that for anybody who has not been in this business to start by training. Come for the training at this institution. We have the training, which is 10,000 shillings. Then we have the spawn. You can possibly use another 15,000 to 20,000. And of course, there are other materials like the disinfectants. There are things like rubber. There are things like the containers that you are going to use for putting your material. Those kind of things. And then obviously, there will be the rubber. Looking after this crop would amount to about 50 to 100,000 for a small scale farm. From 100,000, you will be able to get about 30% from there if you look at this business well.
That is all for Value Addition. For more information, get in touch with us through the number on your screen.